2016 was very unique. Here at Colorado Christian University, we actually had 3 out of, I would say, the 4 major presidential candidates come visit. So Donald Trump came to the Western Conservative Summit. Gary Johnson and Evan McMullin visited the campus down in the Event Center. We did invite Hillary Clinton for a few reasons. We wanted her to be able to interact with our students. We thought that that would be really good for her to see what a Christian college is like. And I don't want to go too far into what's happening to Christian colleges and the kind of the threat to religious liberty, but it was a unique season. This was a response to, and every election is, an election is a response to the previous incumbents. So in this case, this was a response to the leadership and the principles and policies that Barack Obama put forth. So that was one thing to take into consideration. The second was that, at least on the Republican side, you had a nominee that had no governing experience, and that's very rare. So the Democrats had somebody with 30 plus years of governing experience. Donald Trump has never been elected to any office before, and so he played that as a strength. Because if you're looking at trying to tap into people that are having a visceral and negative reaction to the previous 8 years, the fact that he had no experience was an actual big benefit to him. And it actually got him through the primaries. So he faced 16 highly qualified, principled candidates that any one of them would have been great presidents. So what set Donald Trump apart from them? Well, part of it was he didn't have previous governing experience. He came from the business community, and that was very appealing to a lot of primary voters. And so you have to think about that. That was kind of the atmosphere at which the 2 candidates went into this election, and I think really what led to Donald Trump's victory. In my opinion, if you look at Donald Trump's victory, it was a coalition of 2 major voting segments that came together to support him. One was the working class, and the second was evangelicals and Catholics. So he was able to appeal to the working class on this notion that the American dream was dead. So if you look at any of his speeches, he said that a number of times, and that tapped into a lot of the frustrations that the working class had. Everything's gotten more expensive for them. Their housing is more expensive, their education, their food, their health care. Everything is more expensive to them, but wages have pretty much remained flat for the past 8 years. And so they're frustrated. Trade issues, whether or not the United States has free trade with other countries, that tapped into that Rust Belt area, the Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio area, where you had a lot of manufacturing and a lot of exports that came out of the United States. And so very visceral, very passionate, for them. One of the great videos I'd recommend you watch is when Donald Trump goes and speaks to West Virginia coal miners. Because West Virginia for years was a Democrat stronghold. And here you have a guy from Manhattan who's a billionaire, and you watch him walk on stage and they just go crazy. Why did a bunch of coal miners, what did they have in common with a billionaire from Manhattan? It's because he was fighting to kind of restore the American dream back to those states in that Rust Belt area. So that was very important. And then secondly, the coalition you had between Catholics and evangelicals, where for the past 8 years, we have faced just a tremendous amount of bullying from secular leftists. So we had to sue for the right to be able to practice our faith in business in the Hobby Lobby case. We had to sue for the right to practice our faith in nonprofits with Little Sisters of the Poor cases. This kind of notion that government was really trying to push down religious freedom was very visceral and very emotional for a lot of evangelicals and Catholics. Combine that with the fact that Hillary Clinton had supported the most pro-abortion Democrat platform in history, which was going to require taxpayer funding for abortion, and the fact that she was likely to appoint 4 Supreme Court justices really led people of faith to go, we can't sit this one out. Even though we struggle with a lot of the things that Donald Trump has said, especially about women and minorities and the disabled, they couldn't sit out this election. And so they voted primarily on policy far more than I think endorsing the character or the words that Donald Trump has used.
And then last question, in light of Donald Trump being elected president, how should Christians respond?
Yeah, great question. So when I first got here to the Centennial Institute, I asked God, what is the first thing you want us to do? And I was reading the Bible, and I was reading 1 Timothy 2, and it says in there, Paul says, first of all, what's the first thing you do? First of all, pray. And I've said this to a lot of Republicans and conservatives. You cannot criticize the president until you first prayed for him or her. And so what we implemented was every Sunday night at 7 p.m. we pray for those that are in authority in elected office over us. And we did that for Barack Obama and for Joe Biden and for the Democrat Party just as much as we have done that for the Republican Party. It doesn't matter which party it is. God calls us first to pray. And that's really, really important. So pray first. Second is work and labor. You know, we live in a representative democracy, so our leaders are supposed to represent our wills and our desires. And so if the government does something that's good, be vocal about it and say that's a good thing. So if they roll back religious freedom mandates, which I hope or religious freedom restrictions, which I hope they will, we're going to celebrate that. But when government does something that's not good, we're also going to speak out against it. You know, we're Christians first. We're not Republicans or Democrats first. And so let your faith drive your engagement. Be vocal. Share your thoughts. Engage. Be a part of campaigns. If you didn't like the way things go, there's an outlet for you. You can be a part of campaigns to change things. But I think that Christians first and foremost pray and then engage. And that's what God calls us to do.